למען ציון לא אחשה, ולמען ירושלים לא אשקוט.
You are listening to Hebrew Voices with Nehemia Gordon. Thank you for supporting Nehemia's Makor Hebrew Foundation. Learn more at nehemiaswall.com.
Shalom, this is Nehemia Gordon, and welcome to Hebrew Voices. I am dedicating this episode to the fallen soldiers on the front lines of the war against international jihad. We are coming up on Yom HaZikaron, which is Memorial Day as observed in the state of Israel for those who died defending the Jewish state. In the United States, Memorial Day marks the beginning of summer vacation and is often observed as a time for outings. The exception would be American families who actually have a loved one who died in military service. In Israel, Yom HaZikaron, Memorial Day, is observed as a solemn day because we have a citizens' army. Most adult Jewish males have served in the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces. Everyone knows someone who died in combat. You have to understand, my apartment in Jerusalem is only 3 miles from Bethlehem, where an Arab army is poised right now to invade and kill every Jew in my neighborhood. The only thing standing between the next Holocaust and a sovereign Jewish state are our young soldiers who, with God's help and protection, are willing to pay the ultimate sacrifice by giving their lives to defend Eretz Yisrael, the land of Israel, the land which God gave to his people. This is why Yom HaZikaron, Israeli Memorial Day, is such a big deal in Israel. This is the reason every foreign dignitary who visits Israel is taken to see 2 things. It doesn't matter whether you're the President of the United States or the Minister of Tourism Swaziland. Every foreign dignitary is taken first to see Yad Vashem in Jerusalem and then across the street to Mount Herzl. Yad Vashem is Israel's National Holocaust Museum. It's the memorial that explains how 6 million Jews were murdered. And then the dignitaries are taken across the street and they're shown Mount Herzl, which is Israel's equivalent of the Arlington National Cemetery. It's the main military cemetery in Israel, located in the heart of Jerusalem. And Israelis have no subtlety. The message is really clear. At Yad Vashem, they're shown this is what happens when we're not able to defend ourselves. And then across the street at Mount Herzl, they're shown this is what happens when we are able to defend ourselves. People still die, but it's far fewer, and we don't go silently and defenseless like lambs to the slaughter. Recently, I was interviewing a rabbi in Jerusalem, and he remarked how today was the first time in centuries that it is more dangerous to be a Christian in the Middle East than to be a Jew. He said the reason for this is that today we have an army to defend ourselves. And the Christians outside of Israel don't have any army defending themselves. They have armies slaughtering them. Israelis have some unique traditions associated with Yom HaZikaron. Perhaps the most unique thing is that Memorial Day is immediately followed by Independence Day. Like all Jewish observances, Memorial Day runs from evening to evening. At 8 p.m. on Yom HaZikaron, there's a ceremony announcing that the time for mourning has ended, and now the time for celebration begins. For someone unfamiliar with the intensity of mourning on Israeli Memorial Day, followed by the equally intense celebration only minutes later for Independence Day, this can seem quite strange. However, this reflects the actual experience of the Jewish people who went through the Holocaust, in which 1 in every 3 Jews was murdered by the Nazis. This was followed only 3 years later by the fulfillment of a 2,000-year-old prayer, the founding of a sovereign Jewish state in Israel in 1948. The intimate mixing of mourning and celebration has been a part of the Jewish experience for centuries and was solidified in this formation period of modern Israel. Another unique tradition observed on Israeli Memorial Day is our observance of a moment of silence. At 10 a.m., the vast network of air raid sirens sound all over the country. People stop what they are doing wherever they are, with their heads bowed in silence as the all-clear siren blasts loudly throughout the land. Drivers will all simultaneously stop their cars in the middle of the road and the side of the highway, get out, and stand solemnly remembering our fallen soldiers. Would you join me now in a moment of silence? Don't stop your car in the middle of the road, but if you're in a place that it's safe to do so, please bow your head and remember those young boys who have died defending God's people. Okay, wow. I want to share with you a discussion I had recently with Michael Rood, about a letter my nephew sent to me a few months ago. At the time, my nephew Nitai was a combat soldier in the Golani Brigade of the IDF, stationed on the Golan Heights, facing ISIS forces in Syria. Here is my conversation with Michael Rood on his Shabbat Night Live program.
During President Trump's State of the Union address, he recognized a Navy SEAL who died in action in Yemen, Chief Special Warfare Operator William Ryan Owens. And it was at that time that he recognized him that the President of the United States honored him in death and promoted him and announced there in front of everyone, Senior Chief. And his widow was there, Karen Owens, and it was a very moving moment in time when this woman was told, and it has been promoted out there, that her husband died for nothing. And the President of the United States, clarified the record. No, he did not die for nothing. He died in the service of his country. He died doing a very heroic act, and now she's getting recognized for it. But part of the Congress decided to do a sit-down strike right in the middle of this thing. We have with us, ladies and gentlemen, joining us, not only an American, but an Israeli, one who is very familiar with what is going on in the land of Israel, around the world, for those who are really fighting and standing against terrorism. Ladies and gentlemen, again with us, we have Nehemia Gordon. Welcome, Nehemia. It's good to have you with us.
Shalom, Michael. It's great to be here, and I really am appreciative to Ryan Owens for the sacrifice he gave, and his wife that he went out for years. He went out to defend people against this Islamic extremist terrorism, and he eventually gave his life. And just the pettiness of talking about whether or not that specific operation in which he died got actionable intelligence or not. You don't know that until afterwards, so it doesn't even matter. Here's a man who gave his life for the country and gave his life to defend Western civilization against this evil force that's trying to kill people and is being very successful at it. And we were talking before about an Israeli hero, as a man named Sergeant Elor Azaria. And it's very tragic what happened to him. He was just recently convicted of manslaughter for shooting a terrorist dead. And it's happened on March 24, 2016. There was a terrorist attack in Hebron where two Arab terrorists wielding knives attacked an Israeli position, actually wounded Israeli soldiers. One of them was immediately shot dead. The other terrorist was mortally wounded, was laying there bleeding out, unconscious. And Sergeant Elor Azaria came along with some with the reinforcements, and at first they believed that this man was dead, the terrorist, but then he shot him in the head when the terrorist moved. And this was videoed by a leftist agitator activist who then put it up on the internet, and the leftist video had no sound.
Well, conveniently had no sound.
Yeah, I don't know if the original had sound or not, or they took it out. I have no idea. But the way it appeared with no sound is that he shot this terrorist dead for no reason. Mm-hmm. However, so this went around the world, and the United Nations actually condemned Israel for this shooting of a wounded terrorist. They made it sound like the poor Palestinian teenager was killed. No, this was a terrorist in his 20s who had
already stabbed somebody.
He, minutes before, had stabbed somebody, had been mortally wounded, hadn't died yet, but was mortally wounded. They assumed that he was either, completely unconscious or near death. Elor Azaria, in his testimony, testified. He said the terrorist moved. He could have detonated a device. Now, what does he mean by that, a device? So there's a second video, and this second video, as far as I know, has never been discussed in the Western media, and that's because it's in Hebrew. And in the second video, you can clearly see that there is a man seconds before this shooting, before Elor Azaria kills the terrorist. The man shoots out in Hebrew, Yesh alav kanireh mat'en, simu lev, ad shelo ba chablan lo nogim bo, which in English is, he has an explosive vest, be careful. No one is to touch him until the bomb squad arrives. So imagine Elor Azaria is there. They think the terrorist is dead, and then somebody shouts out, don't touch him. He's got a bomb on him. He's going to blow himself up. All of a sudden, unexpectedly, the terrorist moves. Elor Azaria takes his Tavor rifle off of his, from around his head, aims and shoots and kills the terrorist in the head. But because the leftist narrative has now gone out around the world and the United Nations has condemned Israel, they decided to throw him under the bus. And what they're explaining in Israel is that there was, the Palestinians were on the verge of rioting all across Israel, and they decided to sacrifice this poor young sergeant, must have been 20 years old or so. They sacrificed him to appease the Palestinians and say, oh, okay, we killed this terrorist, but we're going to put our person in prison. And he was just convicted, 18 months. He's appealing it, but he was just convicted.
That is such a travesty. I mean, a
really
sergeant, 20-year-old sergeant. I mean, to reach that rank at his age, he had to have a sterling character, and they ought to give him a marksmanship award. I mean, he shot him in the head, a brainstem shot, in order to stop what could have been a detonation of a bomb. This man was perfect, cool, under control, and took that shot and ended that terrorist's life, which, if it had ended before he even wounded an Israeli, that would have been better. But to then throw him under the bus, this is absolutely a travesty. I hope that really appeal goes through and they give him an award.
Right. And Michael, there was a terrorist attack on June 28th, 2016, where terrorists in the Istanbul airport opened fire on passengers and people in the airport, and they shot him, and he fell, and he looked like he was mortally wounded. And then they quietly and slowly approached him to, I guess, Mirandize him and read him his rights. And what does he do? He did what terrorists do. He blew himself up and killed more people than he had initially by opening fire. And the moral of the story is, if a terrorist is coming to kill and die, you kill him, you put him down, and do not let him kill more people. You're just stupid if you let him blow yourself up. Now, in the case of Alor Azaria, the terrorist didn't have a vest, an explosive vest, but they didn't know that.
Yeah, who knows? Who knows?
Not only who knows, there's evidence that one of the people at the scene shouted, I mean, I heard it myself in the audio, no one is to touch him until the bomb squad arrives. So, Michael, my nephew at the time was in the Israeli army, and I want to quickly read a letter that he sent to me. And he asked me not to share this until he was released from the army because he could have gotten in trouble. Okay. But this is my nephew, Nitai, who is in the Golani Brigade, his authentic reaction to this situation. Here's what he wrote to me. He writes, "Dear uncle, for 6 months a storm of emotions has raged inside me following the incident with the combat soldier Alor Azaria. I don't intend to dissect the incident from a professional military standpoint. And, his basic point is, I don't know if the guy should have shot him in the head. At that time, they didn't know about the second video. But he explains his reaction. He says, I volunteered for the Golani Brigade. I know exactly what and that's an elite combat brigade in the Israeli army. I know exactly what I'm willing to sacrifice and understand why I want to do this. This is the upbringing I received at home. From a young age, it was clear to me that I would be a combat soldier. And yeah, this is no small sacrifice. My nephew, when he wrote this, was 21. Wow, when you're stuck serving and your friends get to go home, sleeping for days straight wearing your boots, trekking dozens of kilometers carrying heavy equipment, and having a relationship with your girlfriend over the cell phone. These are all difficult things that anyone who has served in combat can identify with, and every combat soldier knows these things are trivial compared to the true sacrifice which you are prepared to give as a gift so that we can have a country of our own. What stands between Islamic extremist terrorists and mass murder is little children like my nephew. He goes on, it helps that the people you love are proud of you. It's always fun to hear on the way home, Golanchik, that means little Golan soldier, come and help yourself to a free falafel ball. But you don't do it for that. In order to survive for 3 years as a combat soldier, you need a much deeper and well thought out reason that you can draw on. No matter what amount of crap you eat, something that allows you to finally fall asleep with mud-filled boots and tell yourself it's worth it. He says, even though I've seen difficult moments, I've never had doubts until now. He says, of course, we need the officers. And you have to understand, in the Israeli army, the officers go first. They say, Acharai, after me. They follow, the enlisted men follow the officers into combat. He says, the officers are responsible for us. They serve as our mother, our father, our brother. If we mess up, they punish us. But we have to rely on our officers during battle to give orders that could save lives. We also have to trust them to have our backs when we make mistakes. We are human before we are combat soldiers, and there's no one who has never made a mistake. The day Elor's commanders did not have his back was the first day during my service that I seriously considered going into the commander's office, handing him my weapon, and telling him that it was not for me. I'm willing to give everything, and this is how they might abandon me. Am I really going to charge at the enemy in the footsteps of someone who won't have my back if something goes wrong? For 6 months, I've been carrying around these thoughts, and every time I hear something new about the Alor Azaria trial, they return to me. But despite this, I will remain a combat soldier. I will finish my service soon with the bitter knowledge that this could have happened to me or to someone from my team or my company. What can I do about it? Not much. What I can do is be proud of those men who hold our country together and protect us. I can acknowledge that they are truly giving everything in the fullest sense of the word. Thank you, Alor Azaria, for protecting us. That was my nephew's message. That's the letter he wrote me.
Nothing more to be said. Nothing more. Shalom, Nehemia. Thank you.
Shalom.
You have been listening to Hebrew Voices with Nehemia Gordon. Thank you for supporting Nehemia's Makor Hebrew Foundation. Learn more at nehemiaswall.com.